Here we go. All right, today is Friday, July 14th. We're interviewing Sam Rice at Springfield, Illinois at the American Legion Convention. Sam is 68 years old, having been born on April 29th, 1949. My name is Jimmy Hunter, and I will be the interviewer, and Michelle Marvin will be the court reporter for this interview. Sam, would you please state for the record in what war and branch of service you served?
I was in Vietnam in the Army.
Okay. When and where were you born? We're going to get some details about your personal history first.
I was born April 29th, 1949 in Galesburg, Illinois.
Okay, and are your parents still with us?
No.
Okay. Who were they and what did they do?
My dad was Ed Rice, and he was a barber and a boxer.
Oh, cool.
And my mom's name was Mildred Bobby Rice, and she was just a homemaker.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have one brother, a year younger than I am, Chuck.
Okay. Did he happen to serve in the military?
Yes, he did. He was drafted into the Army also and served in Germany.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service?
I worked at Kraft Cheese Plant, helping make Swiss cheese, and for 9 months after I got out of high school, and then I went to work for Jones and Laughlin Steel Mill as an overhead crane operator.
Okay, you put the holes in the cheese, huh?
Yeah.
All right, you said that you were in the Army and you served in Vietnam, correct?
Yep.
Why did you choose that specific branch of the military?
I was drafted. I didn't really have much choice.
Okay. And what was the highest rank you?
Sergeant E5.
Sergeant E5. You were active military, I would assume, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you serve on the guard afterwards at all or anything?
No. They told me that since my service in Vietnam, I did not have to do that.
Okay. You recall your first days of service. How did you feel? Where'd you go through basic training and so forth?
Well, I entered service in January 1969, and it was my first bus ride, my first train ride, and my first airplane ride.
Well, you had a lot of
all
firsts
in like
then.
2 days.
Yeah.
And I was sent to Fort Bragg, North Carolina for basic training, spent time there, and then went to advanced individual training at Fort Polk, Louisiana as an infantryman.
Okay. What you learned in basic training, did it make you question what you knew about the service before you joined, or did it answer your question?
Well, I never really knew a whole lot about it. No one in my family had been in the service before that I know of. And I just went by what friends said, and it wasn't really as bad as I thought it was. I did okay.
Good, good. Do you recall your instructors? And if you do, what were they like?
You always remember your drill sergeants. Yeah, they were hard on you, but they also were kind of compassionate for you, which I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. What did you do after basic? Where did you go, and what was your first assignment? Did you go for more training, or?
No, after basic, I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for just advanced individual training, mainly like training on weapons and things like that. And I knew I was going to be in the infantry, so that's kind of what they based all your training on.
So that was the special training you got,
Yeah.
was infantry,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And it didn't really pertain to what I actually saw in Vietnam, but it was a help.
And that Vietnam, just going to Vietnam, was that your first assignment? Or
Yes.
your first
Yep.
job, so to speak? How did you adapt to military life? You know, the physical regime, the living conditions, the food, the social life, and so forth. How did you adapt?
Well,
to all
stateside, I was okay. I was in good shape when I went into the military, so that helped a lot.
Mhm.
And in Vietnam, I was also whipped into good shape before I went to Vietnam. I think I adapted pretty well to it. I was always an outdoor person, and we were definitely outdoors.
Okay, so you served in Vietnam, and What did you do to mentally prepare yourself to go overseas and go to, so to speak, go to war?
Well, I don't really know. I don't know. I just came home for a couple weeks before I went, and when I left for Vietnam, I had no idea what to expect.
Do you remember getting there and what your thoughts were when you got there?
Yeah, as soon as they opened the door on the plane and we went out, there's always three things that the guy remembers, and it's the heat, the humidity, and the smell. And I'll always remember those three.
Well, that answers the next question of what memories you have of serving abroad. And then naturally you were in Vietnam. It was probably jungle-like and so forth.
Yeah, we were on the coastal part to start with, and then I got assigned to an infantry company and spent most of our times in the mountains and foothills.
Okay. What was the weather like there, and how did that affect you?
It was hot and humid.
All the time?
Yes, all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
It got down, when we were in the mountains, we were soaking wet most of the time, and if it got down to, we never actually knew the temperature, but maybe around 65 or so, we about froze because we weren't used to it.
Yeah. Did the weather affect? How did the weather affect you and your equipment and your?
Well, it did affect you. It slowed you down a lot, especially in the mountains and the foothills and during monsoon season. We learned what to carry that was lighter weight and how to get by and just live off what we had.
And the maintenance of your rifles and so
Yeah.
forth.
That wasn't a problem. I'd heard a lot about the M16 being not reliable, but that was never a problem for me. And that's mainly the weapon I carried, other than the 12-gauge shotgun.
Okay, you didn't have any problems with that, with the water and the humidity
Nope.
and that affecting your
Nope.
equipment? Okay. What kind of food did you eat there?
Sea rations. I will never eat fruit cocktail again in my life. And I will never eat lima beans again in my life because I don't have to. It was sea rations, and we learned what was good and what we didn't like.
And you didn't eat any of the local food or local
Yes, we
water?
did.
Oh,
Sometimes we always drank out of streams and stuff, and we had iodine tablets we could put in our water. And the guys I was with, mainly a 10 to 12 man group, and our parents sent us Kool-Aid to put in the water to just kind of mask the taste and the smell of the iodine and things like that. And we did eat some of the local food, but we tried not to because we weren't used to it. And one time I got dysentery. We were up in the mountains and came upon a North Vietnamese Army base camp, and we hadn't had anything to eat in quite a while, couldn't get a resupply, and we ate some of the rice there, and about 3 of us had dysentery real bad.
What was your favorite food out of all the choices you had?
Probably they said it was roast beef, but I'm not really sure what it was. And they had applesauce and things like that in your sea rations, but that was about it. We did, and I have pictures of this at home. They ate different things than we ate, and dog was one of them. And I did have the pleasure of tasting it and eating it, and it really wasn't bad.
No, it must not have been too bad. You said
No,
pleasure.
no.
So, where did you guys sleep? I mean,
Just on the ground wherever we were.
wherever you were.
Yep. Sometimes sometimes you have to tie yourself to a tree up in the mountains because it'd be so slick and wet and steep that you had to tie yourself to a tree to try to sleep.
Did you have to worry about the local critters, so to speak, snakes and things like that? And,
We weren't really worried about them.
yeah.
The spiders were around all the time. And when I first got there and went out on patrols and stuff in the mountains, you'd have to pull guard duty at night for a couple hours, and you'd wake up another guy. Well, went to sleep and you'd wake up and you had a little swelling around your like the corners of your mouth and your eye and stuff. I never knew what it was, and I thought it was mosquitoes, and they said it was spider bites that they would get on you at night around where the moisture was,
Uh-huh.
and bite you there, but you never knew it.
Yeah.
You know, never knew it at all.
So that was your biggest problem then so far with any kind of critters coming at you, bothering you
Yeah,
while you
yeah.
were there? was
We never
mainly-
had much trouble with them. We did see some deer up in the mountains, but they were real little.
Mhm.
And we had a small tiger come into an ambush one night, and we ended up killing that. And we had an interpreter with us, and he got contact with some of the villagers down below, and they came and got it and butchered it.
So that's some of the local fair tiger meat,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they didn't have a whole lot of meat over there, fish
Yeah.
and poultry.
Was your armor and your equipment and your rifles, were they all up to date, or were they from a previous era?
Well, they were pretty much up to date because the M16 was fairly new at the time. The M16 machine gun was around for a while, but that was still a good, reliable weapon. We had C4 and explosives we used a lot, and I think that was new. But stateside, I was trained on an M14 and got to Vietnam and had an M16. So that was a little different, but you got used to that in a hurry.
So you didn't have any problems getting ammunition or?
Yeah, we
anything?
did,
You
yeah. Because a lot of times in the mountains, we weren't supposed to give our location away. So we couldn't, if we, got in a firefight or something, we spent a bunch of ammo. It was hard to get resupply because helicopters just didn't want to show where we were at. We didn't want them. But a lot of times, we got resupply to us fairly soon. But a lot of times we were lacking on food and water and ammunition.
Did you guys get like relieved at any time during your thing, where like
No.
you'd be on the front line and somebody would come and you guys get to go
No.
back and rest a little or that?
We'd be out for 3 or 4 weeks setting up ambushes along the trails coming from North Vietnam and Laos. And then, we would go back to a rear area, Hill 411, a fire base in the foothills. And we'd stay there about a week and get kind of better food, shower a little bit, cleaned up. And then we'd go back out. They'd fly us back out on helicopters.
That was your R&R, huh?
Yeah, well, I went to R&R in Taipei, Taiwan after 9 months. And the only thing I'd rode on was a helicopter in the first 9 months. I got in a taxi cab in Taipei and thought I was going to get killed.
They drive on the other side of the road
They
there?
drove all over. The
Oh.
first one to honk had the right of way and everybody honked.
The first honk, huh? Were you issued a flak vest, body armor, or anything like that?
No,
Nothing.
it was way too heavy for
Okay.
what we needed to be mobile.
Did you have Kevlar helmets or the steel pot or?
Steel pot
Steel
with
pot.
a kind of fiberglass liner,
Mhm.
which was pretty heavy, the pot was.
And you were, just like they show in the movies, you're able to use that pot for everything, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Use it for cooking and
Well, we didn't do that. We
washing.
had,
and-
we would use our C4, the explosives,
Mhm.
for if we replaced that, we could have fire. We didn't have light restrictions. And that was because so no one saw the light. But we would roll the C4 up in a little ball and you'd light it with a match and it wouldn't explode. It'd burn like really hot so you could heat your C rations up. And just a little ball like twice the size of a BB maybe.
Mhm.
And so, that was our hot food.
Army ingenuity. huh?
Yeah.
Well, you said before, when you were talking about the helicopters not bringing you supplies and so forth, did you guys have any kind of global positioning system?
No,
Nothing?
we had maps and that
Okay,
was it.
That's it, huh? Did you have any experience with IEDs?
Yes. Booby traps
Yeah.
is mainly what we were running into. And some of them were quite good and some of them were quite noticeable. But as I walked point quite a bit, myself and another guy, David Milstead, who has passed away now, we got to be pretty good at it. Him and I is kind of like a team, so it worked out fairly well. We did see our share of booby traps, and I did get hit by one time.
I was just gonna ask you if you sustained any injuries.
Yeah, I was, my booby trap went off and I got shrapnel under my arm, and that was no big deal. It was fairly clean wound. And then I got shot once in the ankle, and that was also not too bad because it went right between my Achilles tendon and ankle bone and just stopped. So that was okay. And I got hit in the head with a hand grenade and never went off, a Chi-Com. Had 13 stitches in my eyebrow.
Well, that was better than it going
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'm glad he made that on a Monday.
So that was kind of what your combat action that you participated
Yeah.
in, was that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
huh?
firefights and ambushes mainly is what we got into. We set off quite a few ambushes when we could and when we thought we could take them, the
Yeah.
people on the trail.
Did you, and I'm asking this because you were in Vietnam, did you have any experience dealing with what they call the tunnel rats and so forth, you know? Did you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
have to do much of that?
well, being small, I went into Vietnam and I weighed 140 and I came home and weighed 119.
Mhm.
So being small, I did go in some tunnels. They weren't big or huge or anything like that. But I was a squad leader quite a bit, and I didn't want to ask somebody else to go in if I didn't. So I did have some experience with it, and luckily I only encountered one person one time.
Uh-huh. Did you have any duties away from the front line?
No, not really.
No,
Nope.
just everything was right up front all the time with you
Yeah,
guys.
well, there was no lines, but we just went out and on patrols and stuff, did our own little thing.
How did you feel when you saw some of the destruction and so forth that was done?
It was hard. In the lowlands, around the villages and stuff, we do like search and destroy and search and clear missions.
Mhm.
And the search and destroy was, you go in, it's where you'd had maybe sniper fire or mortar fire or something from the village. And you'd go in and you'd have to burn the village, which all you did was light the roof on fire because it was grass. And that was hard to do because we were there to kind of like make friends with the people. But you go in and burn their house down, you're not making too good of friends with them.
No, that's not a very friendly gesture.
So that was hard to do. It was, but you got used to it. It was just something you had to do. And I hated working in the lowlands because you never knew who your enemy was. And it's just like nowadays with Iraq and Afghanistan, they all look the same.
Mhm.
But there was the same way, and I liked the mountain missions better than the foothills because the only ones up there was the enemy.
So you didn't have to do much with any of the insurgents then, huh?
No.
So, okay. Did you have an interpreter inside?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We had several interpreters. Some were good, some were not so good. A couple of them we didn't trust so well because they were former enemy soldiers that turned themselves in, and they were sent to California, a couple of them, to learn English, and then sent back over to be interpreters for us.
Did the locals provide you with tips and information and so forth a lot, or freely?
Rarely did.
Rarely did.
Because the locals in the villages, and I'm talking a village, maybe 10 huts, something like that, we would kind of like control the villages during the day, but Viet Cong would control them at night and come in there and they'd take food from them people. So they were, or treat them nice, and the population, the peasants and stuff, I don't think they really cared who governed them or who was with them, as long as they just left them alone on their little bit of rice paddy,
Mhm.
So.
I don't know if this applies to you when you were there or not, but did you guys have any kind of a quick reaction force? Which meant that if some kind of emergency came up, you guys responded in within 10, 15 minutes or so?
No,
Nothing like
No.
that, no? How many units were you attached to?
I was only with one, Marical Division, 3rd of the 1st 11th Light Infantry Brigade. I was with Alpha Company, and that's who I served with. 14 months I was there.
Okay. Did you guys deal with any National Guard units or anything?
No,
No, not
No.
at all. Okay. Did you get your tour of mission extended at all?
I extended to get myself, so when I came stateside to Fort Lewis, Washington after Vietnam, didn't have enough time left in the Army that they discharged me.
Okay.
During my extended time, my last, I don't know, month or 2 months, I was with, me and 5 Americans were with the Montagnard tribe. A tribe of kind of like nomadic people had been chased out of the mountains of Vietnam because of all the fighting.
Mhm.
And they were on our side, and we worked with them, fought with them for several months, and they were great fighters. They were great people.
And they were
Couldn't
true-
understand them,
But they were true to you, right?
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they
And
were
they were
like-
true to themselves because they had a lot of them had their wives and kids with them.
Oh, okay. Would you say you wound up being a sergeant?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many promotions then did you get up to that rank?
Just, well, from private to Spec 4 to sergeant. And my DD 214 didn't reflect my sergeant stripes that I got, but the company clerk had sent a notice to my hometown paper that I had been promoted and everything like that. And the major called me sergeant, and they sewed sergeant stripes on my uniform when I got back to go home in, and but it doesn't reflect on my DD 214. I guess I beat the paperwork back.
Well, maybe that's something you should look into to maybe get
I
that.
did,
Oh, okay.
and they won't change anything until I get an officer to vouch for it.
Verify it.
And we can't find our lieutenant.
Did you get any medals or citations?
Yeah, I got 3 Bronze Stars for Valor, Army Commendation Medal, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, Vietnam Service Ribbon. I'm not sure what else, really.
Well, you should be very proud. Do you remember who gave the medals, and was there any kind of service ceremony when you received them?
Nope. Matter of fact, I didn't even know I got them until we went back to a rear area and the company clerk told us. My parents at home knew I got them before I did.
Oh, okay.
They sent notices to the local paper. And my 3rd Bronze Star for Valor, I never knew I got until 43 years after I was out.
Wow. What did you do for entertainment over there?
Not much. I got to go to the Bob Hope Show
Yeah.
in Christmas in 1969, and it was nice. There was 3 guys out of our company that got elected to go, and I was one of them, and that worked out really well. It's just nice to get out of the field for a day, and I had never heard of Bob Hope Show, the USO shows over there, so I was elected to go and had a great time. So, well, people now don't even know Connie Stevens and Teresa Graves and the Gold Diggers and Neil Armstrong, the astronaut. And we didn't even know man landed on the moon until a month afterwards.
Really?
Yep.
So that had to be kind of a very enjoyable break then for you.
Oh yeah, just for a day it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why was it limited to just 3 men being able to go?
I think we were down so much and spread out in numbers in our platoon.
Okay, well then that kind of answers my next question, because your downtime was limited because you had more work or duties.
Yeah,
than you
we had,
soldiers, right?
we took quite a few casualties at times and didn't necessarily get good people to come in and relieve them, to replace them.
What kind of additional duties were assigned to you?
That was basically it. Infantry, we run patrols and ambushes.
Did you did you form lasting friendships and camaraderie
Oh, yeah.
from serving and how many guys? And
Yeah,
tell
we
us,
have
tell us a little about that.
we have a Hill 411 reunion every other year someplace in the United States. And about a month ago, I just got back from Cody, Wyoming, and we had one out there. Our next one's going to be in Fort Benning, Georgia, in 2 years.
So it's
Yeah,
how
we
many years have you
keep
been
contact and
how many
everything.
years have you been doing this?
I've probably been to maybe 6 or 7 of them, and always see people that I hadn't seen in 45, 40, whatever, how many years,
Yeah.
since 1969. There's
Okay.
always new guys that show up. So it's quite a deal.
Oh, that's gotta be
We have fun. Drink a
special
lot.
place in your
There's-
heart.
There's some beer drank.
Yeah. Did you do or have anything special with you that you was a good luck charm or anything
No,
like that?
nope.
Just paid attention, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember anything I carried like that.
What was your main form of contact with your family and friends at that time?
Letters.
Just letters, huh?
Yep, that was it. And we would write, it was always raining or damp or wet, so we'd try to we'd write maybe a paragraph every other day and then add to it, maybe 2 or 3 days later and add to it. So when a resupply helicopter come out, we would give the door gunner or the supply guy on there the letters, and he would take them back and mail them for us. So really, that was the only contact we had. And that's when we got mail, is when they brought resupply to us. So really, my parents never had any idea where I was at, what I was doing, or really even if I was alive until they got a letter.
And what reaction was your reaction with the letters and so forth that you got from home?
I liked them because I always had Kool-Aid or hot sauce. Hot sauce to get rid of the taste of the sea rations. But no, it was good to hear from them.
Would you say that today's wars are different than when you were in the service?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And how do you think that people like myself and Michelle can be more aware and more informed of what's going on in the wars?
Well, back when I was in, I don't think the government or the media told the truth about Vietnam. And I still believe that to this day. So now with all the ways of communication, that it's hard to, pull something over on the American people. Like we weren't supposed to be in Vietnam, or in Laos and Cambodia, but we were.
Mhm.
And that was just one instant.
You remember when you got out of the service, where were you? You already said you fulfilled your service, and were others discharged with you? And how did you come home?
Come home by airplane from Vietnam. Flew into Tokyo, Japan, I believe it was, and then Anchorage, Alaska. And when we landed in Anchorage, Alaska, it was August, and it was 110 when we left Vietnam and 55 when we landed in Anchorage. Damn near froze.
Oh boy.
But flew into Fort Lewis, Washington about 2 or 3 in the morning. Got a steak dinner, a baked potato, and corn. And that was our meal when we came back, which was delicious.
Oh, I'm sure you enjoyed that. How hard was it for you to readjust your mind when you came home?
Well, I knew I was getting out of service, which was a plus.
Yeah.
Because I knew I would not make a good stateside soldier. That's one of the reasons I extended myself. But when I got to Fort Lewis, Washington, I had my duffel bag with everything in it that I had. And they said, anything you don't want, throw in this bin. So I just threw my whole duffel bag in it and went home with the clothes on my back. Called my dad on the payphone from Moline, Illinois. And he came and got me and took me home. And my mom had called some of my friends. And 9 in the morning, we're sitting at the kitchen table drinking beer. So that was my welcome home.
Well, I was just going to ask you how you were received by your family and the community.
Well, my dad was a barber, so he knew everyone in town. Our town's only 1,200 people. So, and they all knew I was in Vietnam. So it pretty much kind of left us alone, never asked us a lot of questions.
After you separated from the military, did you go back to your old job, or did you start a new career? Or?
I went back to my old job in a steel mill,
Mm-hmm.
worked, ran a crane, overhead crane for 31 years, retired in 99, and about a week later got a job with the Illinois Department of Transportation, and just retired 3 years ago from there.
Okay, you didn't go back to school or anything?
No.
Then, no. Did you use any of your military benefits?
Nope. I don't think at the time they were even explained to us like they are now.
Mm-hmm. And you have remained in contact with your fellow veterans,
Yep.
as you said that
Yep.
you do every year. And besides being a member of the American Legion, do you belong to any other veterans organization?
Yeah, I was with the VFW for a while, and then that disbanded in our little town because of lack of membership.
Uh-huh.
But I've been a officer in American Legion, different ranks around. I've been post commander or post adjutant, district commander, finance officer for our district. I'm chairman of the state POWMIA committee right now, and really like that work that I'm doing with that.
Great. How do you feel like your military experience has affected your life?
I get asked that a lot, but it's hard to explain. It makes you grow up in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19 when I went in and got out 21, and you grow up in a hurry. And you find out that you can do things you didn't even think you could do by yourself or on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it really, at that time, it really shapes your life and your work ethic and things like that.
Has anyone ever thanked you for your service?
Yeah.
And how does it make you feel when
Pretty
you do
good.
it, you know?
Yeah, pretty good.
Because I'll extend my thanks right here to you now, too.
Appreciate that.
How did your, well, I think you kind of answered this before, but I'll ask you again, how your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, the guys that make the war don't have to fight it. If that was the case, I think it'd be a whole different deal about going to war or sending young men to war. So many times like now with, some of the guys that having multiple deployments, and I don't think that's right. And just.
What's the most positive thing you took away from your experience in the service?
Probably the friendship with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear or view this interview?
Well, I hope they take it seriously. And you do not ever want war to come to the United States, because it won't be good.
Is there anything that you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to the interview? And if so, you speak.
No, not really. I think you pretty much covered about everything.
Well, we thank you for your time and for your service to our country, and also for doing this interview with us.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.